Hi everyone, welcome to this webinar. Just going to wait for a couple of seconds as a few more people start joining, and then we will get started jumping straight into the content. So just a few more minutes and then we'll get started. Hi there, I can see quite a few more of you are joining, so I'll just wait a couple more minutes while we wait for a few more to join, and then I will get started. For those of you who just joined, we'll get started in just a couple minutes. Okay, so now we have quite a few people who've joined us for the webinar now, so I can get started. Everyone's found the link. It's great to be here with you all. As you can tell, I'm from the UK. My name's Kavi Sivyer. I'm one of the trainers and assistants here on the Echios EDU team. And today I'll be running you through this webinar. We had my colleague Hannah was unfortunately unable to attend this particular session, so I'll be running it through with you and explaining exactly what Echios EDU is, all of the components of it, everything you need to be able to understand, and then some of the next steps as well. Essentially, this entire webinar training session, the goal here was to be able to give our students and our database, we're getting quite a lot of interest for Echios EDU for this upcoming cohort. So to be able to send out this information webinar, as you would have seen in the email, it's compulsory session, because we want to be able to understand how many of the current pool that we have, how many are really interested, so we can start to move forward with them and put them forward to companies as interested candidates. So I have people from all over. We have candidates from all over, but especially the UK and the US. This is also primarily where we do our work with our UK and US clients. Oftentimes, these large firms will have offices everywhere, but primarily we'll work with them inside of the US and UK. So if you're from one of those countries, you're in the right space. And yeah, very excited to speak to you about Echios EDU. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we dive into the slides. So we have access, my colleague on here, Lalita Hughes. She'll also be assisting me in just keeping an eye on the Q&A and just to make sure that we are covering as many bases as possible. If we don't get a chance to get to any of your questions, a lot of times the questions will come through in private mode or sometimes in public, but if we don't get a chance to get through the questions, we'll also be available through email later on, and you'll have more access to us as well throughout the boot camps, which I'll explain very, very shortly. So let's just dive straight into the content. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so welcome to Echios EDU Info Webinar. We'll be running these very regularly to make sure that people get an opportunity to understand exactly what it is and how they can get the most value from it. And as you can see on the screen here, it's all about allowing you as a student who may not have had the opportunity yet to get their first or next graduate role to stand out and to get hired by a lot of these top firms. Really, it's difficult to be able to muscle your way through to actually try and get your first graduate role. We know it's an extremely uphill battle. And so we're here to assist with that process and explain exactly how the whole process works. So first of all, I've already touched on this, but just to clarify, what exactly is Echios EDU? Essentially, it's a platform that's been created by our parent company, which is called Echios. It's a training provider in the space, financial technology consulting space. We go to firms and we get to train thousands of graduates every single year to be able to actually teach them how to do their roles within the company. So graduates, they've already secured a position inside of the companies, and then we come in and teach them these valuable skills that the company wants us to be able to explain to them. So Echios EDU is essentially the education part of this company. We've splintered off and created an education piece, but this is instead of training graduates who already have a role within finance and technology, who've already secured that graduate position, we're going a step backwards and actually assisting those graduates who are still looking for the opportunity. How do they actually get their foot in the door? I'll explain exactly how that works. But essentially, you can see here on the slide, our program helps graduates land their dream job, top consulting, finance, and technology firms. And we assist you with the skills, knowledge, and connections being this key part, helping you get that credibility, which is often so difficult to prove to companies. We allow you to get that credibility so then you can stand out from the competition and actually gain your first role. So that's exactly what Echios EDU is. Who do we work with? There's a long list of clients now, and that list is just building and building. The more we go out to clients and start mentioning that we're offering this service of going out to students directly and assisting them to be able to become qualified candidates, clients are really, really interested. So the list is growing and growing. Here's just a short list of some of them right now. And as I mentioned, the list keeps on growing because people are looking for qualified, diverse candidates who really have a good grounded understanding of how the business and how theory actually works in a practical business sense. So this is a real need right now, which is fantastic for you. Okay, so the big question, which oftentimes we know from students is difficult financially, is they ask, hey, what's the catch? What is this? I've signed up for this program. What's actually happening? When will I have to pay something? Because this doesn't make any sense as to why it's free, essentially. And just to let you know, it absolutely is free. For yourselves as the students who are wanting to try and get the job, it's completely free service, which is amazing. When I was a graduate, I really wished that I had this kind of opportunity to access a resource like this. And I'll explain exactly why it's free. Essentially, firms are really looking, as I mentioned, for, well, let me take a step back. Top firms sourcing quality talent is extremely difficult, and it takes a lot of resources from them. It's costly, it's time consuming. They just get inundated with thousands, if not tens of thousands of applications, depending on the firm. And they have to have an entire team sifting through and understanding exactly which applications make sense, which candidate looks like they may be a good candidate. And essentially, from the company's perspective, it's always a roll of the dice. So just taking yourself out of that student mindset for a second and into the company frame of mind, they're trying to understand who can I hire, who's going to be the least risky and will actually be a good candidate. They don't have any experience. They, have studied from here or there, but we're just not exactly sure who's going to be a good candidate. What this leads to is companies just pulling from the same pool they always pull from, top universities and colleges, which makes sense. They're happy with that. But now that's essentially making it that diverse candidates from other schools, other backgrounds, other ethnicities, they need these candidates, and they're trying to understand how can we find them, but ensure that there's still they're still quality candidates, essentially. So this is a real difficulty for companies. And so what's happened is that essentially companies have come in and said, here, we'd actually like to sponsor this training. Please, Echios, you're our trusted training provider. Come and you have a connection between us, the company, and the students across the board. Go out and actually train and pre-qualify these candidates for us. And so they've given a budget which is much less than their hiring budget would be, because obviously the hiring process is still going on. You can still access these companies through the normal hiring means. But they've said, go and find some candidates from pools that we don't have access to, from pools where ordinarily it wouldn't be possible to be able to access the company from that avenue. And so what this allows us to do is to go out and actually give you the skills, knowledge, and credibility that I mentioned to be able to now get access to these companies. And because it's pre-sponsored by them, it's completely free of charge for you all the way along the process. So you can sign up completely for free, as you already have. You can access the podcast, which we've run a couple already, which is access to business speakers and knowledge directly from the industry, completely for free. And you can even come through our boot camp, which literally takes you through 1 week of training, exhaustively everything you would need to know, everything that we're currently training students on. So we know this is exactly what companies want because we're currently doing it. This is exactly what they want. We're training the students on how all aspects of finance, technology, and consulting work to give you a good baseline knowledge, and for companies to look at you to say, yeah, this is not a risky hire. They have some good baseline knowledge of understanding to allow you to get your foot in the door and then continue on to the more, company specific training that would happen when you get your role. So that's why it's free. That's why companies are very, very interested in being part of this program, because really, and I know this is rare in this world, but it truly is a win-win. For them, it's much more cost effective to pay this smaller fee rather than have the entire team hauling through tens of thousands of applications constantly. It's much more cost effective to say, please sponsor the training of students, so then they have a better chance of becoming qualified candidates who can apply to us, and essentially bypass a lot of that long, lengthy application process, because now we know this is a pre-qualified candidate. Okay, I hope that makes sense so far. I know I've been talking just for a little bit. I want to just ensure that everyone is still on board. I have the Q&A open here on the side, so if anyone has any questions, please start typing them out in the Q&A and we can get to those as well. Cool. I'm going to quickly move on. As I'd mentioned, why trust us? We already have our parent company, which is Echios, and we're training providers inside of a lot of these companies. Echios EDU is the younger company based off of Echios, and so we already have a lot of trust with all of the firms that I'd mentioned before. So it's essentially, it's not a scam. A lot of students are unsure as to exactly what this is, but it's completely legitimate, and yeah, we're excited to be able to offer it to you. Okay, let's talk about IQ versus EQ. There's this big conception, and I can understand where it comes from. You're currently studying in university, so the thought is, I'm gathering all this knowledge, all this theory. I'm starting to understand exactly how everything works. So I should just be able to pass with high grades and then get straight into a company. This is really just a prerequisite. So having a good IQ is a given. They're expected to have a good IQ. Now what companies are looking at is this huge piece here, which is EQ, emotional quotient. How good are you at communicating all of the knowledge and understanding that you have, adopted over the however many years your course is, 3 years, let's say. You've gone through this process of education. How good are you at communicating and translating that to real business ideas? This has become a huge part because IQ is a given, essentially. So what we're going to look at is an interesting topic, an interesting idea, which is called cross-industry pollination. And this is where we look to upskill everyone, regardless of what exact industry you're looking to get into. We're looking to upskill everyone. Finance, technology, and consulting. So everyone's going to be able to get a bit of something depending on where you want to go. You'll just have a slightly different lens to look through. Let's take an example, content for any industry. Let's say you're considering a finance specific role, investment banking, global markets, etc., etc. You're looking to get into a finance specific role within a firm. And so with the program, you understand a deep and core understanding of the financial topics from a business perspective. And then you can actually understand, when you run through our digital IQ session, you can have an understanding exactly of how the latest technological trends like cloud computing, AI, etc., how that's starting to have an impact on businesses. So then you can have really meaningful conversations with your managers when you arrive and impress people at the interview session. Then This is the core part for everyone. You'll see this repeated, enhancing your professional skills so you can actually stand out in those interviews. This is the core part. This is something that students lack because you've never had an opportunity to really be trained by those who are currently within the industry to understand, how do I present myself properly? How do I actually come across as extremely credible, even though I have no experience? This is a core part that we really hone in on, understanding within meetings, how are you presenting your ideas, how are you speaking, how are you holding your posture, how are you keeping eye contact, using your hand gestures, the way you say your words, something called disfluencies. Are you stumbling over yourself? I mean, this, I kind of thought, are you speaking like that, or are you speaking with a lot of credibility? That's something we really look at and will train you thoroughly on. Again, completely for free within this bootcamp, which is fantastic. Next, let's take another lens. You're looking to get into a technology role. So this is essentially, we're going to be running you through the same content, but now you can look at it from the lens of being able to access a technology role. You'll solidify your core understanding of technology through really focusing in on our digital IQ session. This will allow you to understand everything from blockchain, Python, coding, the fundamentals of that, AI and machine learning, cloud fundamentals, even Internet of Things. We touch on a lot of different topics that all companies are interested in at the high level. We're not going to give you a deep dive here. We're giving you as much as you need to be able to impress those at the interview. So we don't need to bombard you with more and more information unnecessarily. We're giving you just enough that you need to be able to show yourself as a qualified candidate at interview level. And then, of course, the recurring theme, professional skills. Next up, let's say you're considering a consulting role. Well, you're going to have to focus in on everything here. Learn about the technology, learn about the fundamentals of finance, this professional skills piece. Become a really rounded candidate to ensure that regardless of which industry you end up serving, you have a rock solid understanding of how that industry works. Okay, so again, I can see a few questions and answers coming through. Lalita is there in the chat, so feel free to enter them in there if she hasn't answered already, or you need to clarify anything, keep putting it in the chat, no problem at all. This is what the traditional route of applications look like. I don't need to tell you necessarily, you already know it yourself. You're maybe going through or have already started or are considering starting this whole process. Here's what it looks like. You have an application, you have your CV, you have your cover letter that you've written, and you go ahead and make that application to any given company. You then get dumped into this huge hiring pool of nameless, oh well, not nameless, but faceless. There's no personality added to it. You just get thrown in with all the other candidates, and it's a huge pool of candidates that then the company has to go ahead and sift through. This is one application for one company, and there you are in this huge pool. Then, of course, you have to increase your chances, so you do it again for another company, and then again for another one, and then again, and again, and again, and again. And you've had to just build this huge archive. More than likely, you've got a spreadsheet somewhere that you're figuring out how to keep track of everything. You're trying to see who's getting back to you, who isn't, how far can you get through the process. So yes, this is the reality. This is something you have to go through. But there's a way of making it a lot simpler for you, especially if you want to get into some of the specific companies that we have a partnership with. And like I said, that list is growing all the time. We're constantly outreaching. So this is what the process with Echios EDU looks like. Yes, do one application. Currently, the application form is on the site. You can build your own profile, and we'll ask for some very straightforward information from you. You really don't have to do much when it comes to the application process. Again, it's totally free. But here's where it actually gets interesting. You get to come through the bootcamp for free. It's 1 week long. It happens in October. I'll give some more information about that later on. And you become a pre-trained qualified candidate. Now you're on our database. We've tagged you and assessed you as a qualified candidate. We'll have a personal relationship with you as well. So we actually know exactly who you are, where you'd be suited, which company would work for you. And then we give you to the many companies. So rather than it being the inverse before, where you're just in this huge pool of who knows how many, and there's no way to really stand out apart from your IQ, but companies are really interested in both IQ and EQ anyway. Now you can have a way of being able to stand out, and rather than you going out to many companies, it'll be the inverse of many opportunities coming your way. This is the hope and the process that we're putting together. Just as a side note, outside of the bootcamp, we also get to do lots of live podcasts directly with business speakers and hiring managers. And so this allows you to basically have a little bit of an edge when it comes to the interview process. So you can come and say, oh, I heard the business speaker that happened, Latia from Nomura came and gave a speech on how to access Nomura and how to best, attack the hiring process. I got to see that podcast via Echios EDU. I love this point, I love that point. And that allows them to see that you're a really engaged candidate, going a little bit above and beyond just to understand and hear from their internal employees. So it's a great opportunity to do that as well. So please make sure you keep up to date with the podcasts that happen all the time. So this whole process is going around. The whole purpose of Echios EDU is just to allow students to do this, essentially. Right now, likely you have no experience. This leads you to not really get any opportunities, because often they'll ask, no, we need to ensure that they actually know what they're talking about, so we can't give them opportunity. If you don't get an opportunity, that leads you round to this cycle. Okay, then I still don't have any experience. So then you're stuck in this cycle. No experience, no opportunity, no experience, no opportunity. Essentially, we're here to break that cycle and actually give you real practical knowledge to be able to understand how to get into the industry. When companies will see that you're pre-trained, you've gone through the boot camp, you have this seal of approval, essentially, that starts to not completely eradicate, but really put their minds at ease when it comes to the no experience side. Okay, they do have some understanding of some of these topics and how they relate to business. Great, this is something, and again, because it's coming from a trusted provider, an actual training partner with the companies, the trust level is so much higher than if it just came from any generic online course. This is the point. And oftentimes we'll get the question, just to tackle the question now, the question comes, hey, I'm in university, I'm already studying, I don't need to keep going through and studying more. I already have a really amazing understanding of Python and exactly how that's going to apply into a financial understanding. Or I've understood derivatives and bonds and being able to invest in that way. I completely understand everything. Fantastic. That still doesn't solve this problem here, which is that your IQ is amazing, but we want to work on your EQ, and it also doesn't solve this problem here of not having any experience and no opportunities. So for yourself, as a confident candidate who feels that they are able to get any role, you don't need the training. You don't necessarily need to have your confidence boosted by the training and go through that whole piece. No problem at all. In that case, you'll breeze through the boot camp. So you can still come, attend, you essentially get assessed to make sure that you really know what you're talking about. And then you get the sign of approval that allows you again to bypass this whole process, which is going to be lengthy, frustrating, difficult. You get to now basically be seen as a qualified candidate and fast track yourself towards some of these fantastic top tier firms. Awesome. So I hope I got to clear up that, because oftentimes people are saying, this high level overview, I don't need it. I've already studied at university. The whole purpose is to increase your credibility around around your current understanding and your IQ already, just to increase the credibility around that and to have a stamp of approval. Okay, so now we're coming towards the end of exactly what Echios EDU is. I'm going to very briefly cover just these next few slides, and then a little bit on Q&A if needed. I think already a few questions have been answered. So let me give you an introduction into what's the next step for you. If you're here and you showed up for this webinar, that means that on our system, you've now been flagged as a candidate who is interested and engaged, which is fantastic. That's the first step, to be able to actually come and just show that you're engaged and ready to be able to be passed forward to a lot of these companies. The next step forward is this boot camp. So I mentioned the boot camp, and here is in fact, I can just go ahead over to the landing page for it. Bring that up. So if you go to echiosedu.com/bootcamp, you can see exactly the page that I'm going to be running you through. It talks all about the bootcamp, exactly what you're going to learn, etc. But I'm going to run you through that in this format on the slides here. But please, you'll have to go to that URL later on anyway. So I will go ahead and put that on the screen later on. But how does the bootcamp work? I've already briefly mentioned this. Students get training to help them stand out in front of top firms. And essentially, they get the stamp of approval after going through the training. Really the core part here. Yes, you'll get an understanding of finance, of technology. The core part is your communication skills, your presentation skills, those soft skills that firms are really looking for. Upon completion, then you'll be entered into our pool of recommended candidates that now we can go ahead and take out to top firms to say, here is a qualified candidate, allowing you to skip a lot of that frustrating application process. Here's what the schedule looks like and exactly what's going to be covered. This cohort is going to be starting in October 9th to 19th. And here we're going to be covering an intro to financial markets, digital IQ, as I mentioned, talking about AI, the algorithms that go into that, as well as topics on the cloud, etc. Communicate to Influence will be the next one on Wednesday, the 11th of October. Each session is just 90 minutes long, so it's a really nice condensed information packed. It's really valuable sessions. We try to cut all fluff possible to make them as valuable as possible in those 90 minutes. Defining your personal brand, which is key for being able to, again, stand out towards companies. We cover investing and trading fundamentals for those getting into finance. Even if you're not getting into a finance specific role, having an understanding of this as a student is really impressive to potential employers. They see that you're very, very engaged in this area. It's really impressive. Advanced Excel and PowerPoint to ensure that as soon as you hit the desk, you can again be seen as a really qualified candidate, because this is a tool that's used across the board within the industry. Corporate entrepreneurship, we'll talk about actually owning your own path and being able to carve that out. A lot of these firms love seeing that there are self-starters. And so if you struggle with that or want to be able to understand how you can show that more to firms, we cover that in this section. And then, of course, mastering interviews. We talk all about how to actually nail the interviews and what to say, how to come across. Again, communication skill is really the key part here, as well as exactly how your content is going to flow. And then on this session, we have our final assessment. So here we'll be able to actually assess you. If you pass, then you get put into our pool of qualified candidates. And again, this is a free resource. So if you are struggling, you want to keep on coming back through the sessions, we're able to assist you as well to bring you to that point of being a really qualified candidate. I'm not going to go into, on this next slide, I'm not going to go into the exact specifics. You can read all the details about exactly what's covered in every single section here. But I would say don't get too hung up on the exact content. Yes, it's going to be really, really valuable for you. We know that companies want you to know all about these different topics because, again, we're training the companies directly. But don't get hung up on exactly, oh, I need to learn this specific thing or that specific thing, and they're not covering it at a deep enough level, etc., etc. Here's what this is all about. Again, bringing you back to that core understanding of being seen as a qualified candidate. That's really what's key. That's really what's key here. And by you coming through this process along with us, it just shows that you're ready, able, and willing to be able to put in the work and to show yourself as a standout candidate. So we'll cover an introduction to financial markets. Like I mentioned, there's details on that, investing and trading, Excel and PowerPoint, a little bit more finance related. But then we also have mastering your interview skills, digital IQ. This is a fantastic section. We're not just covering AI, we're actually covering tons more to do with everything digital, Python, cloud computing, blockchain, etc., etc., etc. So many different technologies covered here. Corporate entrepreneurship, as mentioned, and then these pieces around your brand, communicate to influence. This one will definitely be super valuable for any of you as students. Communicate to influence is fantastic. Okay, we've just about reached 30 minutes, so I'm not going to keep on going on. What I want to do here is now just start to open it up for a second with any final questions that people may have. We've been answering them as we've been going along. I've been seeing the Q&A chat pop up, and then keeping closed down. Lolita seems to be answering a lot of these questions, which is fantastic. If there's anything else that you need to ask, please feel free to contact us as well. You can contact us at info@echios.com. You'd be able to contact us there anytime, and you'll be receiving emails from us. So this is your next step. Please head over to this URL, as you can see, echiosedu.com/bootcamp. On this page, you'll be able to enter into your email. Again, it's totally free, so there's no reason you shouldn't be doing it. As soon as you enter your email there and sign up as someone who's very interested in the bootcamp, we will be reaching out to you anytime between now and October, before the bootcamp begins, to be able to have a little bit of a session with you, just to gain a deeper understanding of why you want to join the bootcamp, what exactly you want to get out of it, and yeah, to ensure that it's right for you. Any questions that you have along the way, please, again, as I mentioned, reach out to us via email. We're always happy to answer any questions that you have as well. Okay, so at this point, I'll just wait for any final questions. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Pedro. I saw your question and comment come through there. Yeah, absolutely. Really, really looking forward to it. You don't need any prior experience. We're here to be able to give you that experience so you can actually get your foot in the door. Fantastic. Looking forward to having you on board. Thank you so much. Just again, for those who have not yet gone ahead and signed up at this link, please do so now. That's your next step to be able to keep moving towards becoming a candidate that's seen as qualified for a lot of these top tier companies. So looking forward to having you on this bootcamp. Any final questions? I'll just be here for a couple more minutes, and then we can close out the session and give you some time back in your day. Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you. See that come through? Brilliant. Okay. Well, I'm going to start slowly wrapping up. I hope you all got to go to that URL. It's been fantastic having you here. And like I mentioned, any final questions, feel free, if you don't get a chance to ask them here live on the webinar, feel free to email us and we'll get in touch and be in touch soon. Thank you so much, everyone. Looking forward to seeing you all on the bootcamp very, very soon. Thank you so much for joining.